If you are anywhere on the gaming side of the internet, you've probably heard of Mixtape, the game that IGN has claimed to be a 10 out of 10 and apparently has been mentioned as a potential runner-up for Game of the Year. It's actually already won Game of the Year at a Game Awards ceremony in Sydney, though nothing has been said to my knowledge about it qualifying for the major End of the Year awards. With that being said, there's been extreme amounts of debate centering around Mixtape, so of course I chose to buy it and try it for myself. Is it good? We'll get to that. Let's start with a spoiler-free overview. You are playing as a teenage girl obsessed with music named Stacy Rockford. She has two friends named Cassandra and Slater, who I unfortunately had to look up after playing the game because I legitimately forgot their names. The whole game centers around Rockford spending time with her friends and remembering past memories before she moves away. It's supposed to be a coming-of-age story set in the 90s, with each chapter represented with a song from Rockford's mixtape, hence the title. Already, the game just seems normal. It's an indie game about growing up and leaving your teenage years behind. The story itself is decent and actually well written. I think the only thing that it fumbles over is the main characters themselves. They're honestly really abrasive at times, and I have a hard time wanting to root for them. This specifically applies to Rockford and Cassandra. I think Slater is probably the most chill among the three. I am of the understanding that they're all teenagers and based on the story are upset over Rockford moving away, but there are certain parts in which either Rockford or Cassandra are extremely harsh almost out of nowhere, both to each other and to other characters. I can't speak on accuracy for the era as I didn't grow up in the 90s, but I definitely was influenced by it alongside the 80s thanks to my parents, so from what I know it's okay? The gameplay is also a little lackluster, but by no means is it boring. Some of the mini-games were pretty fun, like the segment where you play baseball as Rockford and later as Cassandra. The game definitely babies you, but I've been seeing people claim that for the segments featuring skateboarding and the cart, that the game entirely steers for you. This is either not true, or they fixed it by the time I got to play. It does have auto-turn, but you still have to use the controller to move so that you don't smack into anything. I know this because when I let it just auto-turn at some point at the beginning of the game, I just crashed into a car. The game overall takes around 3 hours to complete, so it works if you like playing shorter games. With all that out of the way, there are some controversies surrounding the game. The first and most prominent is the situation with IGN and a multitude of reviews praising the games with a 10 out of 10. There has been some suspicion over whether or not these game critics had been paid to give glowing reviews, considering how general thoughts on the game contrast drastically between critics and gamers. What? A critic paid to say good things about something? No, that would never happen. They're always known for their extreme honesty. In all seriousness, I wouldn't be surprised if these critics got paid to say extremely good things about the game. That kind of thing happens all the time in so many industries. I personally don't entirely trust mainstream game websites like IGN anyways. Sure, it's helpful to know what games are good or not, especially if money is involved, but at the end of the day, it's subjective for everyone. Not to mention, there's no way that websites like IGN haven't been paid to give higher reviews on games in the past. I believe that is to be expected. However, this all begs the question, why would an indie game have the money to pay critics to say good things about their game? Mixtape was developed by Beethoven and Dinosaur, an actual indie game company. So this means that it's an indie game, right? This is where people have a hard time drawing the line. The game may have been made by an indie company, but it was published by Annapurna Interactive, a company division that I can only explain as operating similarly to A24. Annapurna specifically publishes indie titles and helps them become more mainstream, known for games like Stray, 12 Minutes, and What Remains of Edith Finch. There is one more addition to this equation that I haven't touched on. Beethoven and Dinosaur was founded by a musician. Meet Johnny Galvatron. Formerly involved in music, he founded Beethoven and Dinosaur with the help of Annapurna because he wanted to develop video games and step down from music. Mixtape isn't even his first game. It's actually The Artful Escape released in 2021. With this corporate funding and connection to a musician in mind, people have rightfully questioned whether or not you can even call Mixtape indie, especially considering the staggering amount of expensive copyrighted music that was paid for. I'm extremely on the fence myself, especially considering how I had a weird feeling about the game to begin with. Something about it felt oddly like an industry plant. With that being said, Beethoven and Dinosaur is still considered an indie game company despite its founder, and this was used as a marketing advantage for the game no matter what people think it falls under. Besides debate on suspicious critic scores and supposed indie status, there is one more controversy that is polarizing people online. Let's go back to the gameplay. I actually had a conversation with a friend over call on this, so shout out to him. Due to the nature of the gameplay, people have questioned whether or not Mixtape should even be considered a video game, or if it aligns more with being an interactive experience. I had brought up to my friend whether or not we could apply this logic to other games that have quote-unquote limited interactivity, and my specific example was the Telltale games. These games were chosen not only for their interactive aspects, but for their episode format and status as beloved games. Me and my friend ended up coming to a decent conclusion in my opinion. The Telltale games have something that Mixtape doesn't have, and that is the ability to choose and change the story. You as the player are directly changing the story based on your choices. Not to mention, the interactivity aspect relies on quick time events. Sure, these games don't have any fail states, but it's the involvement of the player in the end that makes these games so loved and respected. The Telltale games also make it a point to label themselves as interactive movies, so regardless they are aware of what they are. Mixtape is a very linear game that doesn't give you agency, but rather leads you to your destination and gives you no options that help the player establish a choice with the characters that Rockford has a relationship with. In conclusion, Mixtape and the Telltale games both technically fall within the same genre, and if the Telltale games are still considered games, then Mixtape is a game too, despite it having more limits in comparison. I think the reason why this debate even happened in the first place is because people were already unhappy when it came to the other controversies, so it was just one more nail in the coffin. Not to mention that when you look up the game, it's listed as an adventure game, which can potentially be misleading. I also have a sneaking suspicion that Johnny Galvatron wanted to direct a movie instead of a game, hence why this feels like less of a game and falls into being an interactive experience. I just can't prove it. My final thoughts on Mixtape are as follows. I think it's not a bad game, and no, I didn't get paid to say that, but by no means does it deserve a 10 out of 10. At most, I would give it a 7, as it is a game that is okay and has effort put into it, though some might think that I'm being too gracious. I doubt that it will ever receive a proper nomination for Game of the Year, as there hasn't been any conclusive info on this to my knowledge except for its previous win at the aforementioned Sydney Awards ceremony. Even so, there's so many better games, especially in the indie genre, to pay attention to that blow Mixtape out of the water regardless of what critics say. Talking about Mixtape is only going to elevate its marketability, which is hilarious considering what I'm doing. Any publicity is good publicity, as it is still bringing attention and traction to a game that would probably be otherwise ignored. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!